Well, third episode over here on the LAFB, where I'm here with Jamal, the Madman Magdi, and we're here to take your phone calls. Today, we're talking about the opening of the spring portal. We also want to dip into, we have an elite 5-star linebacker that's been crystal balled to USC, plus position battles, and then anything else you guys want to talk about. For the next 40 minutes to hour, you got us. We've got you guys. Phone number 888-997-4539. Lots to talk about, and we are here to take your phone calls. This is a caller-driven show. We will also be answering questions. If you have a question for us, go ahead and drop it in the chat. If you're watching afterwards on recording, please do us a favor. Drop your questions in the comment section. Jamal and myself will answer those questions. If it's a great question, we'll probably pull it over to the next show. So, Jamal, a lot going on here at USC. Thanks for joining me, as always, here on Wednesday night.
Great to see you, Tim. I mean, never a dull day in Trojan land. Just feels like, Tim, it's sort of wild, right? We're sort of right at that midway point. It's been kind of 4 months since the end of the last season, and we're right around 4 or 5 months until the next season kicks off. And my goodness, just think about half an off season. What has happened to this roster? What has happened to this front office? What has happened to this coaching staff? And think we're only halfway through. So, man, never a dull day. Covering USC is like being an investment banker, man. I mean, so lots to talk about always. But great to see you, and thrilled to be doing this on Wednesday nights, as always.
Yeah, so today, basically the big news, I guess we could start off with that, is that the spring portal has now opened. We're waiting for it. But I have to say, as opposed to previous years, USC's roster is a much stronger position. Whether, I've seen people on all sides of the fence on this at practice talking to the beat guys, from just people, fans, DMs, etc. People are talking about this roster, and the consensus is that clearly USC's in a much better position. But the key is not just that they're in a better position, but it's where they're talented and where they're stacked. Jamal.
Yes, no question about it, Tim. I think there's a different feeling with this year, particularly in the trenches. I think we're feeling really good on the offensive and defensive lines in a way that we just haven't felt the last couple of years. We've always had, individuals that are extremely talented. But when you start going 6, 7, 8 deep, that's when there's been some questions. And I think on both units, between recruiting, between the offseason additions, in sort of quote unquote free agency, I think that's where it feels a lot different. That sort of inside out, roster is just different than it was for a number of years. I mean, I'd venture to say in the last 7, 8 years, this is probably the deepest roster inside the trenches than, say, the mid-teens, right off of the sanctions.
Yeah, and that was depth. And it drives me crazy because, Jamal, I'm not sure if you're hearing this. Guys, let me know in the chat if you're hearing this as well. Either the level of ignorance, which I don't think it is there, because a lot of these national guys that I have a lot of respect for, I think it really just they're being obtuse. And the fact that they know USC's talented. They know that USC has built this roster. They know what USC is doing. They also all know now that USC's decided that we're going to play, big boy recruiting with big boy NIL and having a proper, professional front office. And they see that it's coming together. But I keep hearing people talk about how USC lost all those close games last year, and Lincoln Riley, and questioning Lincoln Riley's coaching, and why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? When most of them know football, and I know a lot of you guys know football. And the reason why USC lost a lot of games late was just what Jamal said, was in the trenches. And it's not just in the game-to-game preparation where you're giving those guys, you're rotating your guys, keeping them fresh into the fourth quarter. But also you saw a drop-off late in the season, when injuries start stacking up. And they may roll out there. These guys might get out there and actually, play their brains out. But they're playing injured. You saw Gavin Meyer playing with a club in his hand basically the whole year, and seeing guys that were on that roster that were true Trojans, but we're not built like the guys they have right now. So when people are looking at USC and kind of still question, well, I don't know how good USC is going to be, and they're looking at proven production, and they're looking at guys that came in the sheer size and the fact that they've really figured out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one, Jamal, because Jay Toia, he was a big part of that Danton Lynn offense. And being able to just kind of control that middle and let your linebackers and your ends really, go off. Now USC has that. I think USC does have that, and matter of fact, is one of the strengths of the team.
Yeah, no, Tim, I think well said there. A couple of things, Tim. I think on your first point, there's always sort of the difference between national media and local media, and the local guys like us are always going to be more plugged in than the national guys. But I think, in fairness, if you sort of pull back in terms of the national narrative, where USC may not be getting the same love as what we believe they should be, given what these last 4 months have been, I think you got to kind of there's still a residue. I think there's still a residual from the Lincoln Riley arrival and how much was said, back in, that offseason, pre-2022 season of this is going to be the Mecca of college football. This is going to be turned around very quickly. This is going to be easy. There was almost like a LeBron to Miami feel to it, where it's like, not 6, not 7, not 8, and so the fact that, it came with so much bravado, and then when you sort of look at 11 wins to 8 wins to 7 wins, that win total going down the first 3 years, you can understand why the national media is saying, okay, now we got to be Missouri. We got to be the show me state, because we sort of have heard the narrative before 3 years ago. It didn't pan out. Now, why is this time going to be different? So I think there's a healthy skepticism from the national media because of not necessarily anything that has or has not been done over the last 3 or 4 months, but really, I think what has happened 3 and 4 years ago. And I think to your second point, Tim, about the Danton Lynn defense, yes, I think Toia was a huge part, that ability to sort of clog the interior. But I think the second piece is who's going to be that queen chess piece on the board for Danton Lynn, that edge rusher that you can get pressure on either side. And he had that at UCLA with Latu, where he could line Latu up on either side, really create a lot of confusion, misdirection. And then he had that zone shell concept behind him, so you were always sort of +1 because you could get pressure to the quarterback from either direction in terms of disguising that singular pass rusher. And who is that chess piece going to be this year? And I know we've got a lot of excitement around Jakeem and Ja and Silver and all of these guys. But I actually think that potential chess piece, who's going to be kind of the Latu this year, is either going to be Cam Fountain or if Anthony Lucas is healthy. Those are the two guys I'm really looking at, Tim, as the wild cards here. That I think if they reach their ceiling, I think they totally transform this defense to what Danton Lynn wants to do and then create that zone shell concept behind them where you're always +1.
You're going to have, people know if you can get pressure, like legitimate pressure with 4, right? Not having to bring that extra guy. Let's say you can get legitimate pressure with 4. What that does for your secondary, and again, we have ball hawks and we have talent across the board in our secondary. And then our linebackers, I mean, I'm telling you what, these linebackers play off the ball in space really well. But, when I talk about Eric Gentry and the way we've seen him move around, and then Desmond Stevens, every time he got on the field, it seemed like he was going to either get his hand on the ball or pick it off. So you're talking about two guys also that are going to cause some serious havoc. And then going back to the early part of last year, we saw all the time what Eric Gentry would do. Having a guy his size and his wingspan in throwing lanes and tipping the ball. I mean, it's not mean he's not coming down with the interception, but he's making the quarterback adjust his throw. If you got a Cam Fountain, making him uncomfortable. If you have a situation where you have Keyshawn Silver coming up the middle and not just collapsing the pocket, but maybe even getting to the quarterback, or if he's just pushing the pocket out, making the quarterback roll out and get uncomfortable right into the arms of our ends and the rush end. It changes the entire defense. And again, Riley got a lot of crap for it when he said that this is, it was 2 years ago. He said this is probably the worst roster that we're ever going to have. And it has. The roster has gotten better. I mean, the talent, there's the size. These guys now look like USC players. They look like they're going to be able to stop the run in the Big Ten. And the question mark now is going to be, the young guys like you're talking about, are they going to take that next step? And I mean, we can only so much talk about how great Nua is, talk about how Coach Henney is. At some point, we know that we're going to see it. This is going to be the season to see it, Jamal.
No doubt, Tim. And I think there's two elements to that, Tim, that you sort of talked about. One is with this coaching staff, what is going to be the development of these young players? And we're all really excited about it. And there's some guys that I think, Elijah Newby is catching a lot of attention. Walker is catching a lot of attention. And so I think there's some diamonds there in the rough already, number one. But number two, I'm really excited about what Rob Ryan is going to do to Eric Gentry, particularly because, look, Gentry, when he's right, is one of the most versatile, dynamic players in all of college football, pound for pound at his position. The question with Gentry the last 2 or 3 years has been health. Can he stay on the field? And because he's such a unique body type, the things that make him so good are also the things that don't make him durable. And so what are those sort of tricks of the trade, whether it's technique, whether it's instinct, whether it's position and scheme, that are going to be able to get Gentry to be more durable? Because Tim, we're obviously so focused on offensive, defensive line. Going to be massive storyline, obviously, this whole year with Maeva, and is he going to make that next step? I think after those first 2 or 3 kind of headline themes of this 2025 season, I think the health of Eric Gentry is going to be one of the key barometers to how many wins this team is going to get. And I think his health has perhaps a 2 to 3 win impact on this particular season. I think he's that instrumental when he's right.
Yeah, we saw it last year. Do not tell me anybody in this chat, even you Irish fans I see out there, thank you for being here. I will tell you that losing Eric Gentry as the heart and soul, not just as a leader on the field, not for his disruption, like I was talking about in the passing game, but his disruption on getting to the quarterback and the hurries and getting into the backfield. He was leading the team for the majority of the year in tackles for loss, I believe. And he was right up there in sacks. I mean, and he was out early. I think that the durability with Eric is a thing. He got hurt when he was at ASU. He got hurt when he came here to SC. This last year, and let's face it, Jamal, that was a freak accident. Yeah. The way he got that and it wasn't like a breakdown. It was a concussion, just kind of diving over the pile and kind of rolling on the back of his neck. To me, a lot of times, I think sometimes people say, oh, this guy is injury prone. When you see some of the injuries some of these guys get, it has nothing to do with their body or their body makeup or maybe even their durability. It's just the human body's, your joint is made to go a certain way. If you take it a different way, I don't care, unless you're sort of being like Wolverine or Superman, you're probably going to lose a tendon, and same thing with concussions. I mean, there's guys can take a hit, and sometimes it's clean. Sometimes just a little bump the wrong direction can concuss you. So, I mean, it is interesting. But the one point I will fully agree with you on is we lose him more than ever, I think, because one thing I think we do, and we'll talk about it as we talk about the spring portal, I do think that although I love our depth at linebacker, I think we're missing I think that what I'm trying to say, we're missing an experienced piece. Yeah. I see a lot of potential in some of our young linebackers, and I'm really excited actually to see them to get out there and show what they can do. From Michigan, Jaden Walker comes to mind. Walker, yeah. There was a clip of him and just smoking a guy in kind of like a hybrid Oklahoma kind of drill where they got up and they came across the end. So, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to in it, and seeing if Anthony Beavers could put on that extra weight, and kind of what he can do. Is this going to somehow possibly be the year where this linebacker crew does start to make a difference and is able to, show really what they can do? Because I think they are comfortable. The fact that they moved Newby to defensive rush end position, I think shows you that they're having some thoughts. Again, we'll talk about them in the portal, but we're now about, I don't know, almost 20 minutes into our show, you guys. And this is a call-in show. We appreciate you guys all being here. We see a lot of people in the chat. Love to hear from one or two of you guys on the phone call, 888-997-4539. give us a call. Again, everything's on the table. We'd like to set up some ideas for you. Spring portal's open. Is there somebody out there that you're really interested in? Questions about? Are you interested in the quarterback? I think that Jamal and I off air, we're talking. It's pretty clear that Jada Maraba is going to be the starter in our opinions. The question is going to be maybe that third position. I mean, I think Longstreet, we both also agree that Longstreet might be that guy for that. We can go into that conversation as well. But give us a call. Let us know. And also, if you guys just get here, please do us a favor. Go ahead and we're actually, this channel is really blowing up. We appreciate all of you. I mean, I think Ryan's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, putting out daily content, you guys, on USC News as it breaks. So make sure that you guys are subscribed and hit that like button. It really helps out the show. Going back to the national guys and we were talking about before, I think that they forget about the fact that we had a losing record the year before Riley got here. And I get it that we went 11 really without a couple of questionable phone call. Well, actually without a couple of questionable penalty calls in that Utah game up in Utah. and if there wasn't like an issue with Caleb going down in the first quarter, USC looked like they were going to run away from that game. USC is in the playoffs, but that's not because it wasn't just Caleb. And that's the narrative you keep hearing as well. It wasn't just the fact that we had Caleb. We also had that offensive line, and there wasn't much done right underneath when we had Clay Helton as the head coach. But Clay McGuire did put together, and there was some pretty talented offensive linemen in that first year that Riley inherited. So you had a solid offensive line.
Yep.
You had this guy named Jordan Addison at wide receiver, who is that difference maker on the outside. We're seeing him in the NFL right now. So he might have a little to do with it. And then on the defensive side of the ball, who's that guy named? He played pretty good. Tui Pelotu, you remember that guy? So I mean, when people say that, and then Riley just, and they just fell apart. Well, one thing, Caleb was still on the team that next year. Caleb was not the issue. It was the fact that the offensive line was gone and we just didn't have a difference maker on the defensive line. So people forget that stuff. And USC has been building itself out of the self-sanctioned hole that they had been in for about 7 years under Clay Helton. So, to say that it's going in the wrong direction when it dipped like that, I think you really have to take a look at all the moving pieces, Jamal.
No, I think that's fair, Tim. But at the same time, the numbers don't quite lie, right? 11 to 8 to 7. But I think on the flip side there, to your point, Tim, look at the ingredients of that 11-win team and the ingredients that we're talking about right now, right? Really consistent, holistic offensive line play. When you look at where we are right now with the offensive line, I think we feel really good about the top 5 or 6 guys. And then there's a lot of depth at that particular position. So the ability to find the right 5 over the course of the season and also be able to manage injuries, I think you're feeling really good there. I think there's a sense, does Lemon or Lane break out this year to perhaps get to, I don't want to say Jordan Addison won the Biletnikoff the year before he was at SC, but can you get to sort of close to a Jordan Addison level, number 2? And then number 3, to your point, Tui Pelotu, right, led the conference in sacks, was so instrumental to that team. Who's going to be that leader on the defensive side? And I think the fourth piece there, Tim, even if they weren't great schematically, they weren't really all that great personnel-wise on the back end. They had Kalen Bullock, a ball hawk, very similar to sort of a Ramsey this year. There's some parallels, but that defense was just so opportunistic, right? I mean, it was 4 or 5 turnovers a game. It was the classic bend but don't break. They would give up 350, 400, 450 sometimes. But the fact that you could get 4 or 5 turnovers, think about that Oregon State game. You're talking about all the near losses. There were some near wins that year too, Tim. That Oregon State game, 4 or 5 turnovers on Chance Nolan. That UCLA game, the Corey Foreman. The only thing Corey Foreman ever did in a USC uniform was pick off Dorian Thompson-Robinson in the Victory Bell game. So there was some wild ebbs and flows to that particular season. But some of the guts of what was happening there, I think you're seeing some of those remnants. Now the big question, Tim, is, does Maeva take that next step?
Yeah, that is definitely one thing I want to talk about. Just a rebuttal really quick. Also, we saw how opportunistic. Again, where does that start? Which we talked about at the beginning of the show. When you get a pass rush, especially if you get a pass rush with 4, like you were able to do with the Tui Pelotu, when you get that pass rush, it opens up the backside, right? The quarterbacks gets rid of the ball earlier. He has to do some anticipation. That leads to picks. And then the guy like Caleb Bullock eats like mad, right, in his sophomore year. And then it seems seemingly to drop off the next year. His production dropped off. He didn't become, again, just like Caleb, he didn't become a worse player. It's just there was there was a limited pass rush. And so therefore the quarterback had all day to pick apart the secondary. Then your secondary doesn't eat. And, and you see a guy like Kalen doesn't put up the same numbers he did the previous year.
Tim, who do you like in terms of pass rush, right? Like, who's kind of your guy that you're seeing could be a game changer? I mean, is it Lucas if he stays healthy? Is it Cam Fountain on this trajectory? Shelby has sort of teased us and flirted with us with such athleticism over the last couple of years, hasn't quite put it together. Newbie now moving to the edge. Who's somebody that you think can really sort of elevate and get to that, Tui Pelotu level, a Leatu Latu level, and so forth in this Danton Lynn scheme?
Okay, well, if you talk about a lineman, I tipped my hand earlier when I talked about Eric Gentry. I think Eric Gentry is going to be havoc. They're going to have him lined because he's just like he was at Arizona State. They line him right up on the. I think he was a rush end at Arizona State. I'm not sure.
Yep, he was rush end.
But sometimes during the season, early last year, they would pull him right up to the line, almost like a rush end, and bring him. And so, I mean, I think he could be that hybrid role. We talked about him as well. I mean, I'm waiting for Cam Fountain. I think Cam Fountain. I just think he has all the physical tools. And then you brought up Lucas. Lucas was just a step behind last year. Do you know what I mean? If he could just make that jump, and again, talking about the whole line as a whole, if you're getting that disruption, if you have guys on the interior causing that havoc and pushing that pocket backwards, that lets the guys on the outside eat. That extra step that quarterback's making towards Cam Fountain, towards an Anthony Lucas. So he can't sit there in the pocket. You got to push him right in the arms of those rush ends. So to pick one, I mean, as an outside one, I mean, honestly, you guys, I'm really excited to see what Gus Cordova could do. Okay. I don't know how quickly he gets on the field. I don't know. He's a young guy, whatever, but I really like that. And then we lost Lorenzo Cowling. He actually entered the transfer portal. But I'm just thinking that this year is going to be a year where we see that defensive end guys and the rush end guys get home, because I think that the middle is going to be taken care of. I do think the size that we have in the middle is going to cause problems for a lot of centers and a lot of guards in the Big Ten. Yeah. So I didn't really answer it. So if I had to pick one person, I think it's going to be Cam Fountain. I think it's going to be Cam Fountain actually take that big step. Yeah. That's not a seminal idea. Everyone's saying that, but a guy with that young talent plucked out of Georgia or Alabama, Georgia. I get that confused all the time. Out of the South, come here to USC. I'm telling you right now, this kid is primed to pop. Hey, listen, Jamal, we've got a celebrity caller on the line.
There we go.
Remember, number, guys, 888-997-4539. You know that laugh. How you doing?
What's going on, gentlemen? Hey, good evening to both of you, man. Madman, it's good to see you back. Tim, I love you as always, but great topics tonight. You guys got a great rhythm going, and that's what I appreciate. You're the alpha and the omega of USC talk here, folks. I love it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to a couple of points I wanted to touch on, man. First of all, Lincoln Riley. When I see Lincoln evolving as a coach right before my eyes, I mean, people are completely ripping this guy apart. I mean, you know me, Tim. I've been a complete Lincoln Riley supporter since day one. I can see the talent in this coach. He's a young coach. Coaches evolve as time goes on. And from the very beginning, he had a plan and he had a vision for this program. People don't realize how bad situation that he inherited here at USC, and everything he promised to us, he's been coming through. He promised us that we were going to have one of the best defenses in college football. He promised us that we were going to have the best coaching staff in college football. And he's been through over and over. He's evolving as a coach right before our eyes. And you know what? For people to say he either has talent or he's out of here, they should be grateful that he pulled us out of that bottomless pit that we're in. These people should be on their knees thanking him for that. It's going to take some time. We're not going to win a national championship, but who knows? Who knows? He might surprise us this year, this whole entire team. But what I see is these founding pieces that are being built right before our eyes, man. You got some great kids. And to see us getting upset over guys not being a 4-star. We all know how flawed the 4-star rankings. The 4-star rankings are. You look back, Tim, we've talked about this before. You look back at throughout USC history, a lot of guys that end up being our all-time great Trojans weren't even ranked nationally. A lot of them were 3 stars. And those are the guys that I look at for this upcoming season. The guys that we least expect are going to be the ones that are going to come through for us. And the reason is because Lincoln Riley put us in a great situation by hiring one of the best coaching staffs, if not the best coaching staff in all of college football. You got guys. I've seen Rob when my brother was covering the Raiders back when they were in Oakland. I got to see Rob Ryan up close, working his match, Derek Burgess and Kirk Morrison and all these guys, and turned them into all pros. And that's and what I'm and it's the thing about it. He's working with a unit. They're a little on the lighter side. We need some depth there probably. The transfer portal. Maybe we could pick up linebackers or maybe one solid veteran linebacker, which would help this unit. But his love for versatile linebackers, guys that he can put them all over the place, have them blitzing, have them dropping back in coverage. Versatile linebackers is what Rob Ryan specializes in, and you're going to see the biggest difference when it comes to coaching. Coach Haney, Coach Ryan, we've already seen Coach Haney work his magic with some of these guys. Pepe was an after, and to see him blossom under Coach Haney, it's just been it's one of the things that touches my heart to see him like that make himself from an afterthought into a potential NFL player. And then you see Desmond Stevens and Gentry with all this stuff that they have, guys. And versatile. Just like Tim was mentioned earlier, you're going to see Eric Gentry in a lot of blitzing situations and put in the right situations. Just by technique, I think by technique and learning under such a veteran coach like this coach, you're going to see a difference where they're not going to be putting themselves in situations where they're going to get injured based on technique alone. And then, our secondary, we got great talent there. What I'm hoping is maybe we could pick up a veteran guy here and there. I don't want to set back some of these young guys from developing, really getting out there and getting some competitive playing time. But other than that, man, I got to tell you, trust in the process, guys. We're on the right path. I'm telling you, I believe in Lincoln. Everything he's promised, he's been coming through for us. Of course, we all know he needs to win. And you know what? This is probably the year where we're going to see that. We're going to start getting positive. Look at that first year, just like you guys had touched on. That was a solid team. Numerous NFL players on there. We got to taste Lincoln can do with that talent. The Travis Dyes and the Austin Jones, that running back. That running back room that we had was phenomenal. And now we got a potential running back room now that can compete with that running back room from Lincoln's first year. And we got the pieces that are in place. Our tight ends, I think, are going to be the ones that are going to shock people a little bit with their development. I hear some great Walker Lions and the rest of the group. They're really solid, and I look for them to really contribute this next season. And like you said, with the wideouts, watch out, folks. Watch out. Is this the year? Is this the year that Jacoby Lane leads Southern Cal back to the number 1 spot? We don't know. It reminds me of the day when Keyshawn was on that SI cover and he's busting through. Man,
that's exactly what I was. As you said that, that's exactly what I was thinking, Paulie. Where you say, because I think that was the tagline, right? It's like, lead back.
Yes,
when you said they just lead back,
it.
I could absolutely see Jacoby Lane busting through that with his big number 8, big smile on his face instead of the Keyshawn Johnson coming through.
He's such a talented individual, and on top of that, to be disrespected by the Big Ten like he was recently and tossed aside and not even considered an elite quarterback in that division, in that conference. I mean, can you imagine Jacoby? I mean, that's bulletin stuff right there. That is Rocky having Ivan Drago's picture on the mirror. He is fired up and he's going to come back, and I can't wait to see Jacoby thrive.
Now,
like I said, it all depends on Jaden.
Paulie, I don't think that. I mean, I think that was just that wasn't like the Big Ten conference or a Big Ten network, right? It's just some blog saying that. I mean, they would not have Jacoby Lane among the top 10 receivers in the Big Ten, because we know, quarterbacks and wide receivers, that's not what the Big Ten's known it for. Is all I'm gonna. Well, I take that back. I'm sorry, I take that back. You do have Ohio State, now USC, and then you had some great receivers over at Oregon this year. But I mean, but in general, I'm telling you, there's room for a Jacoby Lane on that list. That's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, no question about it, Paulie. I mean, well said. Yeah, I mean, the Jacoby Lane point. I think what we're seeing also a little bit is there's still some bias in kind of the conference media a little bit. Particularly with these new entrants. And I think just the lack of exposure to what Lane could do. Let's not forget, Lane was spectacular last year. 6 of his 12 touchdowns came in the last 2 games. So there was a huge spike there at the end of the season. We saw all the ingredients, and then he really seemed to put it together in that Notre Dame game and in that Texas A&M game. So if you didn't catch either of those games, if you were sort of traditional Big Ten media, you could be sleeping on this guy, And so I think from a Big Ten Media Day perspective and all Big Ten Conference perspective, he's going to be there. But I think some of these folks, man, they gotta jump on the train here quickly before it leaves the station.
Yeah, they better jump on quickly because I can see what's happening here, and I like I said, I see Lincoln evolving as a coach. I see our coaching staff developing players the right way they should be developed. They're taking 3-star guys, no-star guys, and turning them into solid football players. And that's where I could see like a Rob Ryan developing a linebacker that we least expect. I mean, it could be a Quinton, or it could be anybody. Who knows what he has back there that he believes in, that he sees talent in, and our secondary as well. I mean, there's some young, talented kids back there, Tresta Castro and Graham, and I know it's a lot easier for defensive backs to be more involved their freshman year than the guys in the trenches. But Stewart's out there, working his tail off every year, and you look at Jarrett, you look at the knock on him was he was a little lazy. The guy really didn't have the passion for football. But if you look at the before picture when he was at Georgia to now when he was interviewing the other day, I mean, my God, it's like night and day. You see the chiseled body. The guy looks phenomenal. He looks ready for football. And that fires me up as a Trojan fan. I can't wait to see us get out there and really bring back that California vibe. I know people are probably sick of hearing it, but it was a real thing. It really was. People were intimidated when our boys would go into an opposing stadium, and just a bunch of tough kids, man, just kids driven and ready to put it on someone. And I'm excited about it. I really am. And listen, guys, I have some dinner waiting for me. I got to get going. Got nothing but love for both of you. I wish I can go on and on and on because I could really, but anyway, you guys enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you, and fight on, man. Fight on, brothers.
Great call, Walt. All time. Paulie always brings it, dude. Well done. See, it's that easy, guys. It's that easy.
It's interesting. One of the points with Paulie is I think there's sort of an interesting irony that's also taken place with Lincoln this offseason, Tim. He, I think, got criticized over the course of the last year for all the things that he couldn't do, right? In terms of, hey, do you care about defense? Are you willing to really bring in a front office that understands recruiting at an elite level, finances at an elite level? Are you going to bring a coaching staff that's going to sort of complement your skill set? All of those things he was hit on over the offseason for not, having done before. He's done it. He's addressed the things that he couldn't do potentially. But now the litmus test is, can he do the things that he knows how to do? More specifically with Maeva. I think this is a huge year for him in terms of the development of Jaden Maeva. He is the quarterback whisperer. We know the litany of quarterbacks that he's taken to the NFL, the quarterbacks that have won the Heisman Trophy. But let's not forget, last year, Miller Moss, that development curve, Tim, wasn't where anyone expected it to be. The Miller Moss in his last start was a far cry from the Miller Moss in the Holiday Bowl or in that first start against LSU. And so Lincoln has something to prove here with Jaden Maeva, because you can't go 2 straight years without developing your quarterback as the quarterback whisperer. And so it's so ironic because I think he's gotten an A+ report card for addressing all of his gaps and weaknesses. But now it's time to revert back to your strengths and really kind of reproving that you are the quarterback whisperer. And I think it's been interesting, Tim. with this whole Nico Iamaleava situation and, him kind of ultimately now going across town, I think that's going to put some pressure on both Lincoln as well as Maeva, because obviously the opportunity was there to take a Nico Iamaleava if you wanted him. You chose not to for a bunch of rational reasons, right? I mean, you're far enough along with spring practice, you're building chemistry, you really like what you have in Maeva, the tools are there, you're sort of chiseling this program together, and you want continuity. But think, if that development with Maeva doesn't happen the way we expect it to, the way that jump kind of needs to be, and you look back and you say, "Oof, you passed on Iamaleava when you could have had him," it's going to create some pressure here. So I'm really interested to see the Lincoln Maeva dynamic and this evolution, particularly at the beginning of the season and moving forward, given last year's context and the opportunity that presented itself this week that SC declined.
Well, Iamaleava, so you guys, I'm sure everyone's heard this in college football. He decided that he was going to portal and try to get a better deal, allegedly, and Tennessee walked away. He's now, is it official? I mean, I know that all the signs point that he was going to Westwood. It's all about a done deal, I believe, unless it's totally official. If it's not, it's imminent. I think it was Rusty was the very first person that started publicly tweeting and talking about that he's not interested and it's not happening. And I think a lot of that goes back to what you're just kind of intimating, is the fact that, first off, you're coming after the spring. So this would be a post-spring guy coming in, which limits really his ability to get on board and ready to go for the early part of the season. That's step one. Step two, you have a situation where now you have Jada Maeva, who was kind of he came in and Miller Moss was getting the majority of the reps in camps. I mean, I know the big deal was made about how close they were coming out of the camp. I think it was, and even Lincoln Riley said something about they're very similar, skill sets very similar, which is, I was like, huh? But I think that Jaden, so there's two sides of this thing. One, I had a long talk with somebody, I really respect their opinion, and their point was this to me. That was in the not, they want to go a different direction than Maeva. And he said, look, Jaden's not a true freshman. Heck, he's not even a redshirt freshman. You know what I mean? It's like, he needs to make that jump, at some point. And the fact that he's a couple of years into college, he's still kind of looks really raw. Although again, the pushback was he was, what wasn't the Mountain West like freshman of the year or whatever it was.
Yes.
So, I mean, so there's a lot there, but we did see it. We saw him struggle a lot in reading, the defenses and reading his keys, reading his pre and post snap, decisions he was making. If he can make that jump, then he has all the physical tools. We said it last spring. I will tell you from watching him this spring and watching him play the end of last season, the guy can make the throws. The guy has an incredible live arm. The question is he going to be ready? Is he going to have that poise? Because the one thing that he's missed, I think, is just his poise. Letting the game slow down for him, letting him see the whole field and go through his progressions and make the right choice. I think that Riley, and I do think he's that whisperer. I think he's had the entire last year. He had a lot of time to watch him at the end of last season. He's had this offseason, take a look at him, and he looked at Jaden and he looked at Nico and said, you know what? I think we're good. I think we're good because there's a lot to weigh into it. Is the fact that Jaden maybe is never going to quite hit a ceiling that you might have with a guy like Iamaleava, that may be the truth. But right now in this system with these receivers and the reps he's had with them, a lot went into it. And I think they probably decided, you know what? I like the progress that Jaden's made. This is our decision. And there's so many other things. There's locker room, there's chemistry. There's a lot that goes into making that decision. And when it comes to quarterbacks, I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to question Riley. I think it's crazy. Last year when people were questioning him, I thought it was crazy. This year, I think it's crazy. I think it was a great call. And I think he knows. And by the way, also all of us, unless you're on the team or unless you're on staff or if you're somehow able to get onto the field and watch those practices, Nobody knows how Jaden's playing, just like this year or last year. I mean, he may have flipped that switch. I've seen a couple of throws, and I think Rusty did a tweet about it, talking about how they was like, look at the catch. Like, no, do you see that throw that was made where it was placed in the corner where only he could get to it? We know he can make those throws. Is he going to see a corner baiting him into an interception? Is he going to see that next level stuff, that cerebral stuff? That's where I think he needs to make his jump.
Yeah, no, Tim, I'm with you. I think his ability, the raw ability is there, right? The arm, he can be mobile when he needs to be, but he's not going to be, Lamar Jackson out there by any stretch of the imagination. But, he knows how to improvise. He knows how to sort of be in structure when he needs to. To me, the question is going to be, like you described, can he go through progression 2, 3, and 4 consistently and make that right decision? Can he play the chess game inside the chess game? Of, hey, I'm baiting you into something, so now I'm in a corner. Can you sort of have that pre-snap understanding and sort of audible at the line and get into a position and checked into a position where you have an advantage? I think that's the quarterback university that you're going to get with Lincoln Riley. And I totally agree with you. I think if you like what you're seeing, and all indications are that Lincoln Riley is really liking what he's seeing in terms of that development curve, then for continuity reasons, for chemistry reasons, for, preparation reasons, staying with Jaden Maeva is absolutely the right decision. The only thing I'm suggesting here, Tim, is it dials up the pressure, because when you had an opportunity to get a 5-star, and we're not talking about Longstreet here, who's got a true freshman kid who should be sitting on the sideline with a clipboard this year and really learning and then getting into the game, next year and really sort of getting meaningful time next year. You're talking about a kid in Iamaleava, full freshman year in the SEC, won 10 games, went to the college football playoff. So this is a much more kind of ready-made product. So I'm not questioning the rationale in any way, shape, or form. What I'm saying is, though, it dials up the pressure, believe you me, because we can talk about the reasons, we can talk about the justifications, but you can't go 0 for 2 with your quarterback, 2 years in a row if you're the quarterback whisperer, particularly if you had an opportunity to kind of get close to a 5-star finished product, at this point with 5 months to go in the season. So it's going to be interesting. That context is always going to be there if things don't work out the way we believe they should and could.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back. What started his ball rolling is he had that guy. I mean, it was caused this hiccup for last year and the losses to stack up. There's a lot of things. I mean, honestly, a lot of things that people also were obtuse about the 2024 season was the fact that we had defections. We had the Bear Alexander saga, we had the Rake saga, and for the life of me, I can't remember the kid who left. We lost 3-0 techs in the spring where we needed to pick up 1 or 2. Right. It's no mystery why the defense was difficult. We also know that we had that great class that I'm always pumping, and they're all now coming to maturity. I think we're going to see a lot of the guys from that class that are going to step up and get meaningful snaps this year. So the depth on the offensive line and through the portal, the defensive line, that's all been taken care of. But where it really hurt last year as well on the offensive side of the ball, I think that Miller maxed out his ability. And I think he balled out in that LSU game. He balled out in that Michigan game. But the guy was taking just hit after hit. And he just was not, I mean, who knows? Maybe he was slightly injured. I mean, there's a lot of things, he didn't look like the same guy. Whatever it was, he did not look like the same guy later in the season as the offensive line and the protection actually got better, as the running game actually got better later into the season. It seemed like his play was shaken at that point and it just wasn't working anymore.
Yeah, Tim, I think that's fair. But
but getting back to the reason why, sorry, I went long-winded end on that one. But Malachi Nelson was the heir apparent. Everyone forgets he came in. That was a big signing. Rayleigh Brown, Malachi Nelson, and Lemon. These were the guys that were going to be the foundation of this offense for Lincoln Riley that would have matured last year in 2024. And Malachi Nelson was supposed to take over the reins from another 5-star quarterback, take the reins at quarterback. And when Williams goes into the draft, then you have Nelson step in, no problem, right? Well, yeah, he hurt that elbow. I think it was his elbow or shoulder. I can't remember.
Elbow. Yep.
And he just never seemed. I think I just saw he signed at UTEP after going to Boise State. So, I mean, believe me, anyone who saw him in high school knows that something happened. So it wasn't like a misevaluation. There's something happened that young man's career. I don't know what it was. Was it purely mechanical? Was it mental? Was he who knows? But something just wasn't right about him. That was a major piece of last year that did appear that, again, people don't talk about it. Oh, they're regressing. You're right. They did regress. They lost a lot of close games. But if the pieces were in place, if they don't lose all those zero techs last year, if they don't, they have a quarterback that rolled through. He needs to prove it, like you said, because it's kind of, I mean, no matter how you slice it up, you are the quarterback whisperer. If you have a couple of years with subpar quarterback play, there is some accountability to that, and I do agree with you.
And Tim, I think all the points you made is fair, but there also has to be accountability on Lincoln Riley in this one regard in particular. Regardless of what the depth was, offensive and defensive line, regardless of was Miller Moss the perfect Lincoln Riley type of quarterback in terms of skill set, that's all fair. But one area that was very evident last year that was consistent and recurring and systemically wrong from Lincoln Riley was he kept getting spooked in games in terms of sticking with the run game. Every time there was a situation, high pressure situation, second half of games where he called a run play or two run plays, if he had two unsuccessful run plays in a row, he would go 8 to 10 plays without running the ball again, or even longer. That was very consistent. He got spooked very easily last year. And the Big Ten is a very difficult conference to get spooked in and kind of stay consistent, to sort of our point, because it's such a trench-heavy conference and style of play and pace of play. And so, look, there's going to be moments here this year through this Jaden Maeva growth potential. There's going to be ebbs. There's going to be flows. There's going to be phenomenal throws. There's going to be boneheaded mistakes. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, particularly in the first half of the season, especially after we get out of the first 3 or 4 games in September, which is sort of Cupcake City. Lincoln Riley's willingness to stay balanced and to protect Maeva from himself is going to be a real critical element here. Because if he's just going to have Maeva go back and throw it 50, 55 times a game, regardless of how much you've prepared the kid and how much he's learned and how much more polished he is, that is not a recipe for success. We saw it with Caleb. I mean, when Caleb had to throw the ball 55 times a game, that was a 7-5 team. Yeah. So you have to see that is going to need to be an evolution with Lincoln Riley. He is going to need to stay more calm under pressure and needs to stay more balanced. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see how he does that.
I think people track that a lot, and they look just strictly at the run pass, right? And so most people do. But there's a lot of RPOs in here. And the run pass options. So the quarterback goes to line, they had the choice. I mean, how many of those times where that we throw the ball 8 consecutive times, was there an option to run the ball? And then it's in the quarterback's to read his keys, right? And to know if is he going to, and then is he going to run it, or is he going to hand it off, or is he going to throw it? I mean, so there are those things in there that I don't think people take into consideration. And I'm hoping then again with another year in the system, with Jaden, and then Miller being probably more limited for himself to tuck the ball and run himself on if the end comes crashing down, etc. I mean, there's a lot of options to what he can do, and instead of just maybe tucking it and then making and then dropping back and throwing it. I agree with you. I think that we threw the ball way too much at Washington. I think there were times in the season, probably at Minnesota, where you just need to ride out the run game. I think that there were opportunities to do that, and there were mistakes made. But it's too. I'm sorry, I agree with you, but I think it's too simplistic to say that it's Lincoln Riley making those decisions. Sometimes he's putting the ball as you have to do, because that's the genius of the RPO. You, the quarterback, makes the decision. What's most advantageous? Do we run it or do we throw it, given the defense I'm looking at?
Yeah,
and yes, they can disguise it.
I get the RPO point, Tim. I think that's totally fair. But let's take the UCLA game last year. I mean, that was fade after fade. There was no RPO there. That was a 1.5 step drop and throw the fade as many times as you possibly could in the red zone. And we kicked 4 field goals in that game. I mean, so
that game should not have been close.
That's not simplistic. Okay, that's not an oversimplification there. That's just the eye test, and that's just common sense where it was fade after fade after fade. There was no nuance there. There was no variation. There was no check tree. So that was just purely a guy, putting it in Maeva's hands and saying, look, I don't think you're not making this throw, but I'm going to keep forcing it anyway. So I think there was a stubbornness at times, and I think there was a lack of calm under pressure at times last year. And I think that's where he's going to need to evolve to kind of where he was in those OU days to kind of take this team to the next level as well.
I've kind of clogged up the chat by staying right here. And valid point, good point, especially about the UCLA game. That was, I don't really get to watch I'm filming and shooting, but watching that game on tape, it was a frustration that UCLA was in that game late, and they should never have been in that game if SC is punching the ball into the end zone. Yeah, you can't. A recipe for disaster last year was kicking field goals and not being more effective in the red zone. And I agree with you. And there is a tendency to play calling to be a bit stubborn, but my God, again, with the Jacoby Lane, with the receivers that we have, it's almost like too tempting to go that fade. It seems like a low percentage play, but when you got a guy like that, I'll tell you what, this year it's going to be a little bit different. I do think that a lot more of those he's going to be coming down with. So we will see. Let's get this question real quick. Archer brings up a point here. It's kind of a similar vein of what we were talking about decisions costing at least 2 or 3 wins. I'm hoping that with a GM, he has less on his plate and can focus more on coaching, which again is not just him, but the position coaches. It's not like traditionally that the coordinators do a lot of recruiting themselves either, but this is even less for them on their plate. Jamal, what are your thoughts on a really great point here?
Yeah, no, I really love Archer's question. And I think it's a lot of what we're discussing here. Look, I think there's 2 points to it. One is we've talked about in terms of the run pass balance. The second is, he's blown a lot of leads the last few years. Like, that's kind of undeniable. There's when
you already heard my reason.
You sort of, we've had the lead in every game last year, but even if you go back to years prior, you go back to sort of both Utah games. Obviously one was with Caleb's injury. You go back to the Tulane game. You go back even to his final year at OU. I mean, the whole reason Lincoln Riley came to USC was because he blew the Bedlam game, so there is something with him in terms of he needs to sort of manage the game a little bit better with the lead. I think that 2 things sometimes happen. He either sort of shells up and just gets super conservative, or he just gets completely imbalanced. And it lets teams get back in the game because there's often these sort of wasted possessions in, Q3 and early Q4 that then creates the close game and then magnifies the 2 or 3 plays that, could go in either direction when, to your point, Tim, probably should have never even been there in the first place. And so to me, I think there has to be sort of an evolution there with him in terms of kind of understanding tempo. I think sometimes Riley, tempo is something I don't know if he's completely mastered. He's an offensive genius, but he sometimes goes too fast in the tempo with leads, and it sort of creates these wasted possessions and gives extra possessions to a team. And then other times the tempo is like way too slow, like end of half situations, for instance. How many times are we like, call the time? What are you doing? Why aren't you calling the timeout? Where he's like playing for a field goal, or he's sort of just playing to run out the clock. And then
not this one again. Hold on. We're talking about Penn State.
I'm talking about LSU. I'm talking about Penn State. I'm talking about a few games last year. Yeah.
I mean, the Penn State, I don't want to do that one again. I completely understood what he was doing in that game. And if you really break down by play and the reason, the why behind it, yes, you could be like, I want to go for the jugular. I want to go for the win. I want to do this. You also have to make sure you're not playing not to lose, but you're not giving the opportunity, especially the way Penn State was moving the ball, especially as we saw Penn State move that ball late in the game. You did not want to have them. You did not want to afford them the time to move the ball down.
No, I Penn State wasn't the most egregious of last year, Tim. Right. I think LSU, that first half with LSU, I recall, in the opener, and also Maryland. Like, even everyone remembers the blocked field goal, but people don't remember the situation that led to the blocked field. I mean, that was not an easy field goal. That was a 47, 48 yarder. Got super like low tempo, conservative. in sort of a bizarre type of situation. So there's clock cycles, there's ebbs and flows to a game, and I think the biggest way he can jump is really sort of, I think, getting a deeper understanding of tempo this year.
Yeah. Hey, here's a good one. I mean, we know that Jaden was the first starting Polynesian quarterback in USC history. That's not the case at UCLA, but this will be the first time that obviously that we're going to have two Polynesian quarterbacks probably squaring off in the crosstown rivalry, which is super awesome. And all you fans out there, you got to start getting used to Taguai, the names, you have to sort of Kinai Pepe and Ratumana Bulabalavu. You guys are gonna have to get to know the Polynesian names, because I'm hearing it even amongst the media, just completely giving up on saying people's. I don't know when this started. Maybe it's because my last name's Prangley and people butchered that my entire life. I don't know, but it takes about 2 seconds to figure out, or if you don't know, ask. Right. Ask. It's Kinai Pepe. I hear people saying that wrong like every single day. All you gotta do is ask. So but having two quarterbacks from Polynesian descent,
I think it's amazing.
I think it's really, really cool to see. But it's about time, because West Coast football, going back my entire life, I mean decades, has been all about Polynesian players. And it didn't just start with Junior Seau. It goes back for you. You have I just stuck my foot in my mouth. Kenny Pola. I mean, you go way back into the 80s stuff. You'll have Polynesian USC guys in the chat. Someone correct me, because I mean, I know it goes way back to the 70s even. You just have this. You have a huge Polynesian West Coast football vibe going from number of Washington players, UCLA players throughout the years, USC. It's just all about the Polynesian community. But this is kind of crazy. This is going to be the first time that you have a game, a crosstown rivalry in the 100 games. What are we at right now? It's got to be getting pretty close to 100.
Yeah, we're what, probably we're in the high 80s. This year might be the 90th or 89th edition. Yeah. So
the fact that this is going to be the first time between two Polynesian quarterbacks is a pretty cool thing. All right, guys. Well, we're getting kind of close to the end of the show. Listen, you don't have. Not everybody has the gift. Heck, I don't even know the gift that Polly has. Polly Walnuts. Give us a call. Let us know. I seen a couple Irish fans, talking some smack. We would love to have that conversation. I would love to have that conversation with you. You can snipe from the chat, or you can come give me a call. Numbers right up here, 888-997-4539. Love to hear from Trojans. Again, we're trying to cover, I guess maybe we should move into the spring portal.
Let's do it, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. We know that. The portal giveth, the portal taketh away. So we're losing out on Lorenzo. I spoke a little earlier. Lorenzo Cowan, redshirt freshman. It has entered the portal. Official. I saw that on Twitter. Maliki Crawford also is in the portal. I think that's it. You guys correct me in the chat or in the comments if I missed one. But so far, so good. I don't anticipate a whole bunch of guys going. I think this is a really tight-knit group. I think the competition at that's the thing. When you have competition, it's so important in this portal era to have that true competition with guys all talented, all with a shot of starting. I mean, look at our cornerback situation. Look at that third wide receiver position here at USC. I mean, there's gonna be a tough battle. Look at the guard, the right guard position. Look at the right tackle position and the competition that's going to be happening. You're going to see, the guards and the tackles. I mean, Tobias and Raymond and Justin Tuanu is going to, they're going to be going back and forth. And they probably won't make a decision until late fall camp on that one. So just your thoughts really quickly on if you think there's a position. I do not want to name names. I've heard lots. I'm sure you have too, Jamal. I've heard some people that are likely probably to enter the portal. I don't want to do that, but I mean, are there any positions that you see possibly maybe seeing some movement and a couple of Trojans entering the portal?
Tim, it's interesting. I think two areas when you just sort of look at roster construction is offensive line and is secondary. We're sort of uniquely deep at both of those position groups. And usually when you have excess depth, in this day and age, that there's always sort of a cause for flirtation with the portal, particularly if you're kind of on the mid to lower rung of that, because playing time is so treasured. So wouldn't surprise me if we saw a couple guys, in one or two guys in the secondary and or one or two guys on the offensive line explore their options. But I'm totally with you that I think the vast majority of this roster is very much in place and is sort of ready to sort of compete going into the fall. And I think that, tremendous testament to Bowden there. And I think, not to repeat what was said weeks and now a few months ago, but this idea of majoring in high school and minoring in the portal, we're starting to see that, because when you minor in the portal, what the implication there is, you shouldn't be seeing a lot of transactions in the portal, right? Because you're minoring in it. If you're majoring in it, then this is today and tomorrow and the day after is a day of great stress, great volatility, and lots of ebbs and flows. But if you're just minoring in the portal, then all you're really trying to look for is, potentially a position group where you want to sort of maybe add one depth piece or a particular package that you really like offensively or defensively, and adding a piece that kind of fits that particular package. You're sort of coloring on the edges, you're sort of refining the painting, but the canvas is sort of made in large part. And I think that's what I see with this roster.
And that's really what Lincoln Riley said after practice. It sounded, when he said to us, he sounded like completely legit. He's just saying, look, we're going to go for a handful of guys, right?
Yep.
We've now like you just said, we're not majoring the portal, we're minoring the portal now. I'm sure, obviously, if you have a day one guy for whatever reason, which is very rare in the spring, but if you have that special guy that comes out, of course you have to go for it, right? If something like that comes available. But I think anybody we're picking up here in the portal is most likely going to be quality veteran depth.
Yep.
Because when we talk about this, the positions that you were talking about, we are pretty deep as far as talent is concerned in the secondary and on the offensive line, but not deep when it comes to experience in a lot of those, right?
And
the
those
safeties
two groups,
are.
Tim, it's also, I'm thinking maybe slightly more outputs than inputs also, because of the excess depth, to your point. I think we need a nice kind of experience piece, but we may lose one or two because of the excess depth. One other position group that kind of comes to mind, I think we're really excited about the future of the position group, but wouldn't be surprised if we got a veteran, is tight end. I think we love McCree. He's going to be tight end one. He got banged up last year. We shut him down a little bit this year. So an insurance policy for McCree. I think everyone's really excited about Lions and what's behind there, but wouldn't be surprised if we picked up a tight end insurance policy.
I'm with you, but I just think it's one of the deeper positions. Be right. The one thing, Lake is productive. He plays. He definitely, especially with Miller Moss last year. It just seemed like when Lake went out, remember we talked about how Miller dropped off.
Yep.
Just kind of coincided with Lake getting out. It was like he was like a safety blanket, like where he could drop. Because listen, let's face it, a tight end is the quarterback's best friend, especially when they're under pressure. You know what I mean? Is that quick past your tight end? He's going to probably be open. That hurt, but I gotta say, it's young. Gabe would never forgive me if I did not bring up Joey Olson, who is a hell of a receiver. I mean, he was like a prolific record-setting kind of receiver, and then they got him out there at tight end. But I'm
not worried about it.
I've heard that same thing though.
I think there's a super high ceiling back there, but I think if you wanted an experience piece, there could be something if you really liked. I mean, and I think the deeper point here is we're sort of picking at some, we're sort of trying to find some warts on Miss America here. I think everyone really likes the roster. This is going to be a very minimal transaction next few days in the portal. And certainly I don't know if any eyebrows are going to be raised in terms of like the level of name, and I think that's sort of a testament to, where this group is and where this roster is.
I just want to see a guy like, Walter Matthews get to the third level, heck, even second level at his size, and to see maybe like a will linebacker or a safety try to tackle it. God forbid, a corner tries to tackle that guy. That's going to be that's going to be an ambulance waiting to happen.
That's a
but I get your
on the
point.
405.
Lake is the one guy. You're right. That veteran piece. I mean, we have talent, young talent. Walker Lyons got onto the field a lot last year, so it's good to get that experience because he's amazing. But you're right. I could see that tight end thing opening up pretty quickly. So yeah, I definitely get that one. By the way, Mosey Tapupu. I mean, he was with the Raiders. Am I right with that?
Mm-hmm.
And the Patriots, I think.
I think you're right on both.
Yeah,
I think you're right on both.
But there's a great history, and thank you so much, Cinematic, for bringing that one in for us. Let's talk about the other side of it. So we're talking about the departures, and we think there will be maybe one or two. Again, I don't want to get into the names, but there are you can see there's a lot of talent stacked up at USC. Listen, it happens at Georgia. It happens all over the place. It's going to be where you have too much talent, and now with the portal, you don't sit out. You just can't stockpile positions. So if you want to look at maybe where we might lose some guys, look at the positions where we have talented young men who have been waiting for their chance to get a start. And it just seems like there's a lot of competition, a lot of talent. I think after spring, we may see a couple of those moves made. But talking about the position groups now, we'll flip side where we think that USC needs a little more depth, especially veteran depth. We talked about the linebackers off air, and I totally agree. We have some great young linebackers. We haven't even seen as far as last year and getting onto the field. We haven't seen what Walker can do. Jaden Walker from Michigan, as unheralded, came in. We talked a little bit about him, but there's a big hole for the veteran depth, Jamal, and I think linebacker is one of those spots. Is there another spot you're seeing? Probably you think that USC needs to bring somebody in.
Tim, I think linebacker is glaring to me. I think to your point, Gentry, Stevens, Walker, ton of talent back there. But given Gentry's history, we're not going to call it injury history, Tim, to your point earlier, but just given Gentry's resume, let's put it that way.
Well, the position itself, really. And the position itself is.
And I think Stevens also, Tim, plays a very kind of high risk, high reward, linebacker. I think he's so well built. He's got such great ball skills, the tackling, it's all there. But it is sort of a high risk style, Stevens. And so I think you want to get some insurance pieces. I would go so far as to say, Tim, you may want 2 linebackers in the portal from an experience standpoint, just as insurance policies and guys that are really good rotational pieces. I think they're in a pretty good spot, Tim. I mean, the secondary is sort of uniquely deep. And I think we're really happy with where we are, I think, from an edge standpoint. And we're talking about interior, right, with Silver and Jarrett and so forth. Maybe one interior piece, though, as again, kind of a rotational piece, if I'm really sort of stretching it. But I would say linebacker is kind of flashing red for me in terms of adding a piece. And if you really want to look at it, maybe one more interior defensive lineman.
Yeah. Okay. One more interior defensive line, you mean?
Defensive line, interior defensive line. Yeah.
Okay. I like us there, but linebacker it is, and you're gonna be a happy man because Gary Bryant III, not to be confused with Gary Bryant II, or sorry, the second. Gary Bryant Jr. You got a third. He's a 6'1", 230 linebacker from San Diego State. Wrong SDSU. South Dakota State that has really is coming in for a visit. Guys, a lot of people that I trust are telling me that this guy has the film. This guy is that guy. We were talking about veteran in the inside, that guy. He's definitely going to be somebody that this staff is probably going to be. Well, obviously, bringing him in on a visit. I think that this would be one of those guys that you might want to get. Again, we want veteran depth, and this guy does seem like he has the ability to be that difference maker in the middle, Jamal.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I think GB3, would be, I think it's exactly sort of the piece that we're looking for there, Tim. I think the other guy is Simpson from Boise, I believe, right? Andrew
Bosco
Simpson.
Brave.
Yeah, but and I think those two, I think if you can go 1 for 2 there, that scratches the itch of exactly what you're looking for. Guys that have played big time football, really, really athletic, and will be really nice rotational pieces.
Yeah, and I'm just watching the film again, and it does look like Bryant III really is great off the ball coverage, closes quickly, just everything I think they're looking for in that guy. And then Simpson, Boise State from Bosco, so local. Both guys I believe are local guys.
Yeah,
that's gonna be something to look forward in a couple of days, because if there's one thing I think that you're looking at linebacker, and I do think that they're going to be able to close. Okay, I think that USC can show the need at those positions. Rob Ryan, I'm sure, is going to, if he gets some airtime, which he will with them, they're going to be very, very interested looking at that. Another guy that I hear is, you guys get ready for it. He's already been crystal balled by Biggins, but everyone been talking about this for a while. Sorry, Notre Dame guys out in the chat, but it looks like one of your own, Kennedy Urlacher. I got a guy named, his name's Kennedy. He's from Notre Dame, and he's coming to the men of Troy. 6'1", 230. A lot of this has to do with kind of like that connection that we talked about with Chad Bowden, and the fact that, remember when Trent Mosley, who was a legacy to Notre Dame, these guys, we talked about how they're going to take all of that experience they had in this recruiting class and previous recruiting class and use those relationships. That's why, guys, you see these coaches, when they don't get a recruit, they still keep it. I don't know how the rules are on keeping in contact, but they don't burn bridges. Let's put it that way, because there's always that portal coming back later on. And totally. So, when you have Chad Bowden and his extensive Rolodex with these players that are out there, if they're looking for greener pastures, and again, Bowden was very, very influential in his Urlacher's recruiting when he was at Notre Dame. He's a local kid from California. He's a California kid. So, and the son, if the name sounds familiar, Michael Urlacher, right? There are some bloodlines, correct?
Yeah, Tim, I believe Kennedy Urlacher is from Chandler, Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. And
West Coast guy. Sorry, how about that?
West Coast guy, absolutely. I think 5'11", 196. Safety. I think he sort of looks the part. Underutilized his first year at Notre Dame, but to your point, I think the Bowden relationship there and
the Brian Urlacher bloodlines.
Correct. That not a bad bloodline to be, Tim.
No.
Not a bad bloodline at all. So again, I think another depth piece there, at the safety spot. So I think
we're deep in safety too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But you watch his film, the way he comes up from that safety, he can really lay the wood, and that's the position I worry about, is that safety room, because again, there's a lot of talent in our safety room right now, and a lot of young safety talent. And when you start bringing in guys into the program,
that means guys are got to look at their options.
So when you have an Urlacher, who's going into an already busy safety room, it's kind of hard to see the future, but we would be making an already busy room a little more busy. So totally. Again, this is a business, and guys want to get onto the field. So that might be another position when we're talking about guys that might be heading out. That might be one of those unfortunate guys we might be losing from the roster.
No question, Tim. I think that's well said. Tim, feels like it's a quiet group tonight, but feels like we put a nice one together here and put a nice analysis and back and forth together. The quiet group. So hopefully next Wednesday, we're gonna get some more chatter and as we get more sort of activity moving forward. But this was a really fun one this evening, as always, Tim.
Well, sorry. One more thing we gotta say, because it's big news. It's my guy, Olu, but he went out, the linebacker, Talanoa Ely, got a crystal ball also.
Yes,
It's something we've been thinking at, you know, and really when we saw Tamuhini Tapui come to SC, and there's that they had that connection. Now Ely, it's the heat's turning up on that one as well. So just keep eyes and eye on that as well. Something again, it just looks like USC. Is it? When are we gonna start hearing Lincoln Riley doesn't care about offense? Do you remember that? That was a narrative like two straight years. Well, yeah, Lincoln Riley's a great offensive coach, but he just doesn't care about defense.
Right.
It just seems like USC is picking all of the elite California talent. And that leads me one last thing before we go. Chad Bowden, great interview that Adam Brenneman had with Chad Bowden. He snuck this one in here, and I love it. He says, I can't wait for the Big Ten to feel a little California on game day. Because that goes into what you're talking about the national media, the Big Ten media, really forgetting about who ran the Rose Bowl for many, many decades. And it was because of that California talent that USC was putting on the field. And I think that Bowden is making it very clear that they're going to be seeing California's best lining up in Cardinal gold again and just knocking the crap out of the Big Ten physically.
I think the big point there as well, spot on. I think some of the magic of Bowden has not just been his energy, not just his eloquence, not just his relentlessness and building out the right staff, but he's been really good at finding the super nodes. The guys that are not just talented on the field, but the guys that have the pull to bring in a lot of other guys, and I think we've seen it a little bit with Jakeem. We've seen it now with Tapui. And I think that's really part of Bowden's strategy that I don't think gets talked about as much. It's sort of this ability to not just find, really great talent, but find those super nodes that then are going to pull everybody else. And I think he's done a really remarkable job of that. And we're still seeing kind of the fruits of that labor well into the offseason and now into sort of the spring transfer portal window. And I think the last thing I'll say about it, Tim, is he's very intentional. That number we keep hearing, look, we're bringing in 30, 35 guys, in this class. And I think it's a very intentional number because he's like, look, even if we lose a third to attrition, and I think that's just sort of the nature of college football today. You're not going to your point, Tim, you're not going to be able to stockpile these kids.
Right.
You're not going to be able to keep them multiple years. There's a whole marketplace that takes place. And think about it as regular people in your careers, right? Like guys like you and me, Tim, we're not, all-star athletes or what have you. You're always sort of taught that you're going to make more if you leave your job after a couple of years, right? And so there's a whole marketplace in real life, and that marketplace is sort of transitioning itself to college football. And so Bowden is getting out in front of that marketplace. He's like, look, I'm going to bring in 35 guys. We'll lose 12 or 13 because everyone's going to lose 12 or 13. And there's going to be this game of musical chairs that is NIL and transfer portal and modern college football today. But that's still going to leave me with 22 really good guys that I'm very excited about, and guys that want to be here, really talented, and are sort of super nodes for the next batch. And I think it's going to be a great strategy, and it's going to be fun to see it sort of play out in the years to come.
And it's a combination of, again, you are not going to build the kind of depth, especially in the trenches like we've been talking about, in 1 or 2 years. This was a thing, and people want to get out ahead of themselves, thinking that they could rise on a hot seat. This was never a 1 or 2 year build. I think USC knew that. I think that USC did get in their own way, the way they were doing everything. NIL, letter of the law, put them well behind when they could have been catching up. But in the end, I agree with you. This is the way to build it. Did I say Kenny Urlacher was a linebacker, or are they? I think about his dad, Bryant Urlacher, and I think linebacker. Did I say linebacker or safety?
I think so. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No.
He's a safety. You guys watch. He puts. Talk about putting a hat on the ball, dude. He does it twice. I saw 2 different hits of him. He does come up and he does lay the wood like his dad. So, who knows? Maybe he could put on a little weight and become a linebacker at some point. You never know. But he is safety. Sorry if I misspoke. I did not mean that one. I want to clear that up before we go. All right. Well, yeah, we've got I guess it's show number 3 call-ins. We've had a couple of calls. Remember, you guys, the idea here is for you guys to weigh in. I see a lot of people making some wonderful points. I see Michael Campbell doing a lot of sniping. Again, feel free to give us a call. We'd love to hear from an Irish fan. I would be more than happy to have a civil conversation.
A civil conversation.
Joe Boyd. Yeah.
Tim, I miss the Irish fans, frankly. I'll be honest with you, and maybe we'll leave it on this, and we'll leave it on a cliffhanger, Tim. We can pick this up next week, but I'm a little worried about the Notre Dame rivalry, Tim. That might be a hot take, but, that needs some juice, and that needs some life, and, it's been 20 years since the Bush push, and, when you're not competing in the same conference, and when you're not competing necessarily for the same recruits week over week, things fade. And now that we're in the Big Ten, there's a lot of Midwestern teams that USC is playing, and I worry that Notre Dame is just another Midwestern team that USC has to play. And so that rivalry needs to be revived, because it's not on life support, but if I was the doctor, I wouldn't be given a great diagnosis.
We should use this. This would be a great off-season topic because it is something that's coming up. Because remember, as you get more and more of the administration that are kind of new to USC, that don't have the USC roots, they're saying things. And I will say this, you guys, for first time now, there is the travel aspect. If you look at USC's losses, they didn't win any of those road games. And so now adding one more every other year, like we're doing this year, adding another road game to the Midwest, let's face it, it'd be really easy, Notre Dame, join the Big Ten. And then we don't have this conversation. And you would be one of our protected rivals, and we play every year. Join the Big Ten. So yeah, that's gonna be a good conversation to have. We could pose it to people. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get a couple phone calls, Jamal.
There you go.
I think we should hit that up next week, possibly. That sounds like a good plan. Well, thank you guys all. I know you guys all have places to be. It's a great seeing everybody here on a Wednesday night. If you guys haven't already, if you would please, if you've enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. We will be Jamal and I will be going live every Wednesday night. We may possibly be moving to 7:00. We don't know. We got to have conversations.
Ooh, Tim, dropping the bombs, baby.
Well, because of scheduling issues, we may be moving to 7. I don't know. But if you subscribe, you will know. So we do appreciate everyone being here. Again, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Jamal, final thought?
Tim, it's going to be a fun next couple of days. With a little bit of, kind of minor portal activity, but excited, man. Next week, who knows? It's going to be, a day in USC football land is like light years. So, who knows where the conversation is going to take us next week. But again, really excited about the direction we're going. And I think what I want to do is, Tim, really start shifting the conversation to this 2025 season. We've talked so much about 26 recruiting the last few months, and it's been great, and we'll continue to do so as things break. But by the way, there is a 25 season to be played, and so kind of talking about the guys that are going to make an impact this year and what's going on this year, I think is going to be really critical, and excited to get into all that.
Okay, so look for that conversation. Look for that Notre Dame conversation coming on up, and look forward to all you guys' phone calls, because you guys remember, this show is for you guys. This is your opportunity to get here, sound off, talk about the team we all love or hate. Again, Oklahoma, we used to get a lot of Oklahoma calls in this call-in show all the time. Love to hear from you, especially the respectful ones. And we know the Irish fans are always out there. The Duck fans, they do a lot of quacking on the internet, but they never call in, Jamal. They never call in.
We welcome it. We welcome it. Some healthy debate was never hurt anybody. So all are welcome. Our two major rivals, Oregon and UCLA, as well as Notre Dame, are welcome, so. Well,
I think you said that in reverse, though. I think our rivals, our rival Notre Dame, and our Pac-12 other rivals, UCLA and
I said it on
Oregon.
Purpose, Tim, I said it on purpose.
You're trying to kick the hornet's nest. I got you. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Jamal and I will see you all next Wednesday at 6 p.m. All right, fight on.